It was a balmy evening in downtown Arlington, the kind where the air carried just enough warmth to make the bustling streets feel alive. Laughter and conversation spilled out from open cafe doors, mingling with the hum of traffic and the occasional clink of a shop bell. People darted in and out of storefronts, their arms laden with bags or cups of iced coffee, their faces lit with the casual ease of a Saturday night. Among them strolled Marcus Tate, a decorated Army Ranger on leave, his broad frame cutting a relaxed figure against the lively backdrop. Dressed in a plain black t-shirt, dark jeans that fit just right, and a pair of worn-in boots, he blended into the crowd effortlessly. A canvas backpack hung loosely over one shoulder, its muted green fabric scuffed from years of use. Marcus was headed to a small bookstore a few blocks down, eager to pick up a novel he'd been meaning to dive into for months. For the first time in what felt like forever, his mind was quiet. No missions, no orders, just the simple promise of a good story. He was halfway across an intersection, the pedestrian signal blinking green, when the sharp wail of a siren cut through the evening clamor. Tires squealed faintly as a police cruiser rolled to a stop beside him, its lights flashing red and blue in the dimming twilight. Marcus slowed his pace, his instincts kicking in even as he kept his expression neutral. A white officer, Officer Daniel Hayes, according to the nameplate pinned to his chest, stepped out of the car with a deliberate, almost theatrical slowness. His hazel eyes narrowed as they swept over Marcus, sizing him up like a hunter eyeing a mark. "Hey you," Hayes called, his voice slicing through the street noise with an edge of command. Marcus stopped mid-stride, turning his head to meet the officer's stare. The man's tone shifted, heavy with suspicion that felt entirely unearned. "You moving pretty quick there, huh? Mind telling me where you're headed?" The question lingered, sharp and pointed, like a jab meant to provoke. Marcus stayed calm, his breathing steady as a handful of passers-by slowed their steps, sensing the brewing tension. Others kept walking, heads down, as if this were just another routine moment in the city. Tilting his head slightly, Marcus kept his face unreadable. "Just going to the bookstore," he said, his voice even and low. Hayes crossed his arms, a smirk tugging at the corner of his mouth. "Bookstore, huh? That bag you've got, what's in it? You carrying anything I should know about?" The implication was obvious, dripping with a prejudice Marcus could feel before the words even landed. Around them, a few more heads turned, eyes flickering with curiosity or discomfort. Marcus sensed the weight of their attention, but instead of irritation, a spark of quiet resolve lit within him. "You want to check?" he asked, his tone steady, almost daring. Hayes straightened, clearly thrown by the response. He'd expected defiance or submission, not this calm confidence. "I'll be the one asking the questions here," Hayes snapped, his hand hovering near his belt. A bead of silence stretched between them, thick with unspoken challenge. The crowd grew subtly denser, phones slipping out of pockets as people began to record. Marcus shifted his weight, still relaxed, but there was something in his stance, something honed by years of training, that made Hayes pause. "All right, officer," Marcus said, his voice as composed as ever. "Let's do this the right way." The murmurs from the onlookers grew louder, their interest piqued by the crackling energy in the air. Hayes squared his shoulders and took a step closer, his boots clicking faintly against the pavement. "Drop the bag," he ordered, his tone harsher now, as if volume could mask the uncertainty creeping into his posture. Marcus didn't flinch. "Sure," he said after a moment, sliding the backpack off his shoulder with deliberate care and holding it out. It wasn't surrender, it was control. Hayes snatched it from him, but Marcus's dark eyes stayed locked on the officer, steady and unflinching. There was no fear there, only a quiet strength that seemed to rattle Hayes more than he'd admit. "Hands behind your back," Hayes barked, reaching for the cuffs on his belt. Marcus raised an eyebrow. "Am I under arrest?" he asked, his voice unwavering. "You're being detained?" Hayes shot back, dodging the question. "You fit the description of someone we're looking for." The vagueness of it hung in the air, absurd and hollow. A few onlookers exchanged skeptical glances, and a woman nearby muttered, Same old excuse. Under her breath, as she adjusted her phone's angle, Marcus gave a slow nod, the faintest hint of a smile tugging at his lips. "All right, Officer Hayes, let me help you out," he said, stepping closer, but keeping his movements measured. Hayes tensed, his hand twitching toward his holster. "Stay right there," he warned. "Relax," Marcus replied, raising his hand slightly. "I'm just giving you my ID." He reached into his back pocket, slowly, deliberately, and pulled out a slim wallet. From it, he extracted a military ID and handed it over. Hayes hesitated, then took it, his smirk faltering as his eyes skimmed the card. The name Marcus Tate, the rank, and the words United States Army Ranger stared back at him in crisp black print. "You still think I fit the description?" Marcus asked, his tone as calm as ever, but now laced with a subtle edge of amusement. The crowd leaned in, phones now openly recording as the air buzzed with anticipation. Hayes's jaw tightened, his composure slipping. He tossed the ID back to Marcus with a grunt. "Doesn't mean you're above suspicion," he muttered. "Stay put while I check your bag." Marcus crossed his arms, a small smile playing on his lips. He didn't say a word, but his gaze spoke volumes. "Go ahead, dig your own grave." Hayes unzipped the backpack and began rummaging through it, his movements rough and hurried. The crowd pressed closer, their cameras trained on him like spotlights. Inside, the bag was orderly, almost militaristically so. A folded paperback, a metal water bottle, and a slim laptop sat neatly arranged. Hayes hesitated, his fingers brushing the book before pulling it out. "What's this?" he demanded, holding it up like it was evidence of a crime. The title read Courage in Crisis, a ranger's guide to grit and grace. The irony wasn't lost on the crowd, who murmured among themselves. Marcus's expression didn't waver. "That a book I wrote," he said evenly, a flicker of amusement in his tone. Hayes blinked, caught off guard. "You wrote this?" he repeated, as if the idea were unthinkable. "That's what I said," Marcus replied, tilting his head slightly. "Wanted to sign it for you, or are you just going to keep digging?" A ripple of laughter spread through the crowd, and Hayes's face flushed a deep red. He shoved the book back into the bag with unnecessary force, clearly struggling to regain control. "Cut the attitude," he snapped, his voice more defensive now. "This isn't over." Marcus raised his hands in mock surrender. "Hey, you're the one making a scene," he said, his tone still calm, but with a sharpness that cut through the officer's bluster. "I'm just trying to get on with my day."